Winter construction requires fighting the environment before the actual work can even begin. Deep snow left on the log beams would melt during framing, creating a dangerous, icy slip hazard. Clearing the heavy accumulation off the roof structure is a mandatory, exhausting first step. Cold weather fundamentally changes the nature of the building process. Heavy timber becomes brittle. Frozen tools refuse to operate, and simply moving around the high-altitude site drains physical energy. The crew must completely uncover the massive wooden skeleton before they can start locking the roof deck together. A single night of heavy precipitation could stall the entire project if left unmanaged. The snow has to go. Ice locked into the log joinery will expand and split the wood. Staging materials inside the cabin shell shields the heavy lumber from the worst of the elements. Cold wood behaves differently than dry summer timber. If the planks are left outside, ice will lock the grain. This makes the tongue and groove joinery impossible to fit tightly together. Moving the boards indoors allows the ambient temperature to slightly thaw the surface. Every piece must be measured, cut, and staged in an organized sequence. Preparation on the ground saves dangerous trips up and down the ladder later.
So I like this, it's pretty cool. Cool. It's the one guys that are stacked here.
Pneumatic nail guns operating in freezing temperatures require meticulous preparation. Cold steel and brittle plastic components can easily fail under pressure. Loading fresh magazines of fasteners ensures the tool will drive continuously without jamming. The builder needs absolute reliability once he steps out onto the exposed roof frame.
We already have, I want Tyler here for this. Hey, Tyler! Tyler! Tyler!
Setting the heavy porch header marks the beginning of the structural roof framing. The massive logs must be perfectly leveled against the mountain backdrop.
We'll do that on the shed dormer.
The eventual load of a snow-covered roof demands massive structural support right at this connection point.
Or 6/8 if you have a small roof. Exactly. Okay, so the only other thing we have to figure out yet is if any of those purlins up there are shorter than...
Establishing a perfectly level plane across a span. This wide is critical. A traditional string line will physically sag over long distances in cold weather, throwing off the measurements. The red laser level shoots an absolutely straight optical line across the rough logs. A fraction of an inch of error at the foundation will multiply into a massive structural flaw at the peak. The crew relies on this high-tech beam to ensure the heavy timber header sits perfectly flush. Checking the structure from multiple angles guarantees the entire roof deck will align properly once the first boards are laid. Timber framing is an unforgiving process where gravity constantly works against the builders.
Right there.
So this is how Joe was taught by Joe and my dad. You always stand on the ground and you sight the porch header with the house. If it looks cockeyed, even if those posts are level, you got to shift it in and out to the other end so it looks square with the house. So you stand out there with this porch line shoots down to the ground there where you can see up. Just to hear it.
Rough logs and heavy timber do not come with perfect factory edges. The brilliant red laser line provides a precise reference on an incredibly irregular surface. Measuring the span dictates exactly where the porch tongue
So
and
we're
groove
squaring this
decking will start.
First porch board
A
off.
flawless starting line is
with the deck.
mandatory.
Normally we work
If
off
the very
ridge pole, but in
first
this
board
case, it's
is
a
laid
big,
slightly skewed, the
overhanging
error
deck
will
here, so we can just
compound
square off the
with
deck
every subsequent plank.
and go up and get our
The
porch
entire
square and run
roof
the
surface
tongue and groove down.
depends on this single mathematical layout.
Now measure 20
The
inches
builder
long.
pulls his tape to establish a square corner over the void.
That's to the inside of the tongue. Go down to where you gotta have enough room for that top one to come down and nail onto there. 20 inches.
Driving heavy fasteners into frozen, dense timber requires tremendous mechanical torque. The builder locks the wooden board into the log frame with a power tool, permanently setting the header. This mechanical bond must resist both the constant pull of gravity and the extreme shear force of heavy winter snowfall. Kneeling on the narrow, icy platform demands intense focus. One slip of the bit could strip the screw head, rendering the fastener useless. Securing the porch framing piece by piece transforms a loose collection of lumber into a rigid, unified structure. The wood and steel act as one. Every connection is over-engineered to handle the dynamic wind loads sweeping through the valley.
All the way up and it's
A
flush.
chalk line stretched
where it touches
tightly
the house.
across the top log
Totally perfect
establishes
alignment
the
there.
absolute truth
Turn it
for
this
the
way.
roof plane. While lasers guide the height,
Or
the
offset
chalk
that much.
powder physically marks the cutting line on the rough wood. The builder pulls the string taut, waiting for the oscillation to stop before snapping it against the grain. This bright line dictates where the log must be flattened. If this line wanders, the flat plywood and timber decking will fail to sit flush against the round logs. Everything above this point relies on the precise removal of wood below it. Marking the structural members by hand connects modern framing speed with traditional carpentry techniques. The nail gun waits silently, tethered to an air compressor, ready to lock the next phase of the build down.
String line repair.
First, the layout must be flawless. The eye checks the string one last time. Wood is an organic, imperfect material that constantly fights against straight lines and square corners. The builder forces geometry onto the natural logs, ensuring the subsequent layers of the roof have a stable foundation.
Okay. Pretty good.
The chainsaw becomes a precision carpentry tool in heavy log framing. The builder aggressively plunge cuts into the beam, removing the rounded top surface. This rough logging technique quickly flattens the timber, preparing a wide seating surface for the flat planes of the roof deck. A circular saw cannot reach deep enough to slice through these massive structural members. Operating a heavy saw while balancing on a ladder requires immense core strength and absolute control of the aggressive cutting teeth. The blade chews through the dense winter wood. Every pass of the bar lowers the profile until it matches the chalk line perfectly. Moving the cutting station inside the cabin keeps the tools out of the biting wind. Cross-cutting the heavy boards on the floor fills the enclosed air with fine sawdust, but drastically speeds up the workflow. These thick wooden planks will form both the visible interior ceiling and the structural diaphragm of the roof. The chainsaw easily rips through the dimensional lumber, sizing the pieces before they are hauled up to the freezing deck. Preparation on the ground dictates the speed of assembly in the air. The raw power of the two-stroke engine eliminates tedious hand sawing. Wood moves constantly with changes in temperature and atmospheric moisture. Measuring the roof edge ensures the long runs of decking do not gradually fan out of square. Constantly checking the layout prevents a tiny gap from multiplying into a catastrophic angle. Fitting the boards tightly edge to edge locks the entire roof structure into a single, unyielding plane. The tongue and groove profile allows each piece to interlock, sharing the structural load across the entire surface. The pneumatic nailer drives long steel fasteners deep into the rafters. This rapid firing creates a permanent mechanical connection in seconds, saving the agonizing physical toll of swinging a hammer in the freezing cold. Every nail driven tightens the seal against the harsh alpine environment. The crew moves rhythmically, transforming open air into a solid deck. With each board laid, the cabin grows stronger and darker inside. Trimming the excess decking as the build progresses prevents long, dangerous overhangs from acting like physical levers in high winds. The chainsaw cleanly lops off the ragged ends in one fluid motion. Managing the edge early keeps the work area safe and provides a clean visual line for the next phase of framing. The roar of the two-stroke engine echoes through the quiet forest. Wood chips fall cleanly to the snow below. The circular saw handles the precision trimming that the aggressive chainsaw cannot. The builder sets the blade depth exactly to the thickness of the decking material. This precise adjustment ensures the saw cleanly cuts the boards without scoring or damaging the structural laws. Underneath, kneeling on the cold, hard surface, the crew locks down the perimeter. The pneumatic nailer fires rapidly, seating each fastener flush with the wood grain. Leaving a nail head sitting proud would ruin the application of the final roofing membrane later on. Every tool serves a specific purpose in the workflow. The circular saw provides a sheer, straight face, while the nail gun secures the massive surface area against shifting. The roof deck is now a solid shield against the sky. Coordination between the builders keeps the heavy boards moving efficiently. The rim board is a critical structural component that locks the rafter ends together. It caps the open bays and prevents the long timber joists from twisting under extreme heavy snow loads. The builder sights down the lumber to check for the notch crown, ensuring the bow faces upward to resist sagging. Securing this thick outer band requires 60 penny nails. These massive, heavy-gauge fasteners are designed to punch deeply through multiple layers of dense timber without bending.
And this side is a little bit of
Tacking the board into place requires precision. The rim must sit perfectly flush with the edge of the tongue and groove sheathing. If it hangs out too far, the finished trim will bow. If it sits too far inward, water will pool and eventually rot the structural frame. The circular saw bites through the heavy stock, bringing the final edge into perfect alignment. The perimeter of the cabin is finally closed off from the wind. The builders force the rigid timber to conform to the layout.
Like it? Yeah. Dude. I'm just tacking it with 60 penny nails. You can see over the edge here. You have to have this in about a 16th inch from the edge of the tongue and groove. You do not want it. Do not want it hanging out. You don't want it too far in. You just want it about a 16th in.
The final fascia
So that
board
fascia runs
must sit
tight
perfectly
over the tongue and
flush
groove.
over the tongue and groove decking. The builder pulls his tape and draws a heavy pencil line across the wood, marking the exact boundary. This critical perimeter layout dictates how water and snow will eventually shed off the finished building. A straight line here guarantees a clean, professional roofline. The graphite mark stands out clearly against the light-colored grain. Precision at this stage prevents ugly gaps in the final trim. Plunge cutting directly into a heavy beam at the roof peak demands absolute control of the chainsaw. The builder climbs the structure to remove the excess mass of the log. Leaving the round timber intact would create an impossible angle for the flat roof panels to mate against. The aggressive cutting teeth tear through the frozen wood grain, leveling the surface in a matter of seconds. Sawdust sprays across the partially covered plywood deck as the blade bites deep into the structural member. This brutal reduction of material is necessary to create a flush, continuous mounting surface for the final roof assembly. Balance high above the ground with a running power tool requires confidence and a firm stance. The severed block of heavy timber falls away, revealing the pale, fresh interior wood. The peak is now ready to receive the heavy decking. The intersection of round logs and flat lumber is always a brutal compromise. Untrimmed log ends hanging in empty air create an uneven weight distribution along the roof line. The builder carries a heavy saw to the edge, slicing the excess timber away. Trimming these massive beams keeps the roof visually sharp and structurally balanced. The cut seals the rough edge, preparing it for the protective exterior trim. Gravity pulls the heavy scrap down into the deep snow. Pre-cutting the bulk of the material inside the cabin shell shields the builder from the bitter wind. The two-stroke engine screams in the enclosed space, rapidly slicing down the heavy timber. Sizing the boards on the ground floor keeps the dangerous heavy lifting on the icy roof to a minimum. Efficiency on the floor accelerates progress in the air. The fascia board acts as the primary armor for the edge of the roof. It protects the exposed end grain of the structural logs from driving rain, wind, and eventual rot. The builder pulls a long tape measure across the deck to establish the final cantilever. This overhang must project far enough to throw shedding snow completely clear of the log walls below. The bright yellow tape locks in the exact dimension, ensuring the wooden shield will sit perfectly square against the winter sky.
I mean, try to go longer if you can, but, well, going about 20 inches on the porch.
One incorrect reading on the tape measure would throw off the entire drip edge of the roof. The builder pulls the line taut, verifying the dimension twice before cutting. A bent nail happens in a fraction of a second when cold steel meets a dense, hidden knot deep inside the wood grain. The builder uses a metal pry bar to rip the ruined fastener out of the roof deck. Extracting the metal completely is vital. If the circular saw blade strikes a hardened steel shank hidden in the wood, it will instantly shatter the carbide teeth and ruin the tool. With the path cleared, the saw glides along the black guide line. The spinning blade leaves a perfectly sheared edge through the thick wooden plank. Debris and splinters are cleared away, preparing the raw edge for the final fascia board. Precision on the roofline is entirely dictated by these small, careful corrections. The deck edges closer to completion. Carving directly into the log wall requires a steady hand and an aggressive blade. The builder uses the chainsaw to notch a flat seating surface straight into the curved timber. This technique blends the brute force of rough logging with the precision geometry of Finnish carpentry. The raw log must accept the flat, straight edge of the modern wooden plank. Wood chips fly as the blade aggressively removes material, creating a seamless, locking joint between the wall and the roof.
Sir?
The structure must remain impenetrable to the winter wind. Driving heavy fasteners while balancing directly on top of the log wall requires intense focus and steady footing. The builder relies on the pneumatic nail gun to quickly attach the long wooden board without having to swing a hammer in a precarious position. The compressed air drives thick, galvanized steel nails deep into the timber. These fasteners are chemically coated to resist rust and physically designed to withstand the brutal expansion and contraction of freezing winter cycles. The orange-gloved hand presses the heavy tool firmly against the wood, ensuring the safety tip depresses fully before firing. Each pull of the trigger locks the structural envelope tighter against the harsh mountain environment. The frame is becoming a fortress. The repetitive rhythm of the nailer echoes across the snowy valley. The connection between fascia and log is now permanent. Plunge cuts straight through the wooden subfloor open essential pathways for future ductwork and utilities. The aggressive chainsaw blade violently shreds the timber, throwing heavy wood chips across the cabin. This rough opening allows the systems to pass without compromising the massive joists. The leading edge of the roof acts as the building's primary defense against harsh weather. Every board placed along this perimeter is measured multiple times, as the final overhang dictates exactly how shedding snow will clear the foundation. The builder spans the tape measure across the raw deck, checking the dimensions before committing to the cut. The chainsaw roars to life, again, trimming a heavy plank to fit the exact angle of the roof pitch. Working along the exposed wall means fighting both the cold tools and the sheer drop below. The pieces slowly lock together to seal the cabin. The massive tongue and groove planks are incredibly dense and require 2 men just to maneuver them into position on the steep pitch. Once seated together, the heavy timber forms a rigid sealing diaphragm. This wooden shield is engineered to support the crushing weight of tons of accumulated winter snow. The pneumatic nailer immediately locks the thick wood down, preventing the long planks from sliding off the icy deck. The sheer physical effort of moving the lumber is exhausting.
They will. Well, this is a perfect... There's so many things that are good for the video like this, you know?
I know it is.
Running the circular saw flush along the freshly laid deck ensures the overhang stays perfectly uniform. A ragged edge invites moisture penetration and uneven ice damming, which can slowly destroy the roof. Roofing progress becomes a relentless physical cycle of measuring, setting, and firing. The pneumatic air system drives the heavy steel fasteners deep into the frozen grain in a fraction of a second. This mechanical advantage eliminates the agonizing physical toll of manually swinging a heavy hammer in freezing temperatures. The saw blade cleanly trims the edges as the crew moves methodically across the broad roof deck. The solid wood surface grows wider with every locked seam. The structure begins to look like a true shelter. Trimming a cantilevered edge, suspended over empty air, takes absolute coordination between the crew. One builder guides the heavy saw, while the others support the massive weight of the overhanging plank. The spinning blade must track perfectly straight along the chalk line, leaving a sheer, flat face. This freshly cut edge will eventually mate tightly with the finishing fascia board. Any deviation or wobble in the saw blade will create a visible, ugly gap in the final exterior trim. Working together ensures the heavy wood does not snap or splinter prematurely under its own unsupported weight as the cut finishes. The edge is secured perfectly straight and incredibly strong. The sawdust blows away in the cold mountain breeze. The long fascia board must sit absolutely flush against the freshly trimmed edge. This precise alignment seals the vulnerable end grain of the roof deck away from the destructive elements forever. Holding a heavy timber board steady over a steep drop requires immense balance and grip strength. The freezing air rapidly drains body heat, making these final precision alignments physically demanding. A single nail temporarily holds the massive board while the builder fine-tunes its final resting position. Wood is a natural material that constantly bows, cups, and twists as it dries. Locking it perfectly straight means fighting the internal tension of the tree itself. The builder physically forces the plank flush before the second man drives the final permanent fasteners deep into the grain. The thick fascia is finally locked into the geometric frame. The heavy blows of the hammer correct any remaining warp.
Here's one.
Beautiful!
Scraping away the accumulated snow from the roof deck is not just to prevent a dangerous slip hazard. If ice gets trapped and nailed between the layers of wood, it will melt and aggressively swell the grain in the spring. This unseen moisture would permanently warp the final structure from the inside out. The surface must be completely dry and flat. The circular saw slices through the thick planks, leaving a razor-sharp, clean drop-off. This perfectly straight edge defines the final roofline silhouette against the stark mountain sky. The geometry of the cabin is finally emerging from the rough timber. The blade tracks the pencil line flawlessly.
Not on a job that I was leading.
Trimming the overhanging fascia in place, rather than on the ground, guarantees absolute accuracy. The saw blade ensures that the two intersecting planes form a perfect, continuous corner of the roof. The builder holds the tool steady against the steep pitch. Sometimes, a bulky pneumatic gun simply cannot fit into the tight, angled corners of the roofline. Driving the heavy steel nails by hand allows the builder to feel the wood pulling tight against the log frame with every strike. The manual effort guarantees a flawless flush connection. Heavy exterior screws provide incredible pull-out resistance, locking these critical, wind-battered corners tight. The threads bite deep into the timber, refusing to let go even under massive structural flexing. A quick, aggressive pass with the chainsaw lops off the final overhanging chunk of the wooden board. This brutal cut rapidly cleans up the rough edge, preparing the corner for the precise final trim sequence. The roof line is nearly complete. The harsh noise of the power tools dominates the silent forest. The chainsaw is traditionally a crude, violent tool designed for felling whole trees in the forest. Yet here, in the right hands, it executes finished carpentry angles with brutal surgical efficiency. The heavy blade severs the final scrap of timber, leaving a pristine geometric corner floating perfectly above the deep snow. Every nail, screw, and board has been driven with purpose against the freezing cold. What began as a pile of raw logs and heavy lumber is now a unified shield. Structure, landscape, and material are fully locked together into a shelter capable of withstanding the harshest winter. Survival here is no longer just about endurance. It is built into the walls.